Jy wil nie weet hoeveel keer ek al gelag met vandag. Right. So this is 2.1. Then at 2.2 they asked, determine the equation of the inverse of g in the form y is equal to whatever. Okay, so kom ons kyk net gou. Gx was gewees minus 2x minus 3. Okay, now we said that gx we changed to y. Nee? Okay, now because we want the inverse. Oops, nou maak ek 'n f, dit moet 'n g wees. Because we want the inverse of g, I'm going to say x is equal to minus 2y minus 3. So all I did is I switched the x and the y's around. Okay, maar nou wil ek hê a is gelyk aan iets. So I'm going to take that minus 2y to the other side to make it positive. Wat beteken x beweeg ook oor, nee? And now I don't want to have 2y, I just want y, so now I've got to divide everything by 2. So, kan ek my nie onderskryf. So a is gelyk aan minus x op 2 minus 3 op 2. Did you guys get that? Any questions there? Is julle alright? Goed, kan ek skip? Then at 2.3. Nou soek ek weer die vergelyking van die inverse van f. So I'm going to skip directly to saying fx is y will be minus x squared. Okay, now we've got to switch it around. So I'm going to say x is equal to minus y squared. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of that minus. So I'm going to divide everything by minus 1, which means it would be minus x is equal to y positive y squared now. Nee? Okay, en dan moet ek van daai kwadraat gaan ontslaa raak. So a is dan plus or minus square root of minus x. You guys good with that? Okay, nou 2.4. Sê hulle vir my gee 'n rede waarom die inverse van f nie 'n funksie is nie en plaas 'n beperking op die definisieversameling van die oorspronklike van f sodat die inverse 'n funksie sal wees. Okay, now f was a hyperbole. No parabola, sorry, a parabola, nee? En as ek vertical line test gaan doen, dan is hy 'n funksie. Nee. But as soon as I switch the x and the y values, you would have seen that at the original f, for one y value, I have two x values. No. So it was a more to one function. Do you guys understand? No? Now when I switch it around, it means that for every x value, there will be two y values. And that means it's not going to be a function anymore. No. Okay? So, geen rede waarom dit nie 'n funksie is nie. You could have said anything from it changed from a more to one function to where we had for every x value two y values. Nee? Ek gaan sommer net sê vir elke x waarde is daar twee y-waardes. That's why it won't be a function anymore. Okay, and then they said put a restriction on the domain op die definisieversameling, né? So as ek daai definisieversameling moet gaan beperk, gaan ek sê x moet wees kleiner en gelyk aan 0 of x moet wees groter en gelyk aan 0. You could have used any one of those two. Okay, so if I restrict f, the original one, then the inverse would have been a function. Any questions? Okay, kom ons kyk gou na 3. Kan ek maar By 3.1 gee hulle vir my die volgende. Fx is gelyk aan minus 'n derde x kwadraat and gx is minus a third x. Okay, so the minus a third x will be a straight line, nee? Ek gaan nou hier langs die kant vir ons net, dis nie mooi opskaal nie, just saying. Okay, sit af daai. Kom ons werk net gou eers met gx, nee? At gx, we said to get the x-intercept. I'm going to make y equal to 0. Nee, so dan gaan ek hê 0 is gelyk aan minus 'n derde x. Wat gaan x dan wees? It would still just be 0. Nee, okay. So if x is 0, then y will be 0. So hy gaan definitief hier deur die oorsprong gaan. Nee, okay. Now, the same will happen if I get my y-intercept. It's still just going to give me the origin, eh? 0 and 0. Okay. Then the next thing that I want you to look at is the sign over here. When it's a negative gradient, minus 'n derde, beteken my lyn gaan definitief so deurloop. Do you guys agree? Okay. Right. So I am going to make my line like that. Oh, nee. Ek gaan nou maar so, ek sal nou nog gou. So as ons dan nou dit het wat hy deur die oorsprong gaan gee ten minste net vir my 1 punt op jou grafiek, nee? So what you can do is substitute in any value. Ek gaan dit nou vir my maklik maak. I'm going to say if x is 3. Why 3? Because a third times 3 will give me 1. Nee. So as x 1 is, gaan y wees, as x 3 is, gaan y wees minus 1. Do you guys agree? Okay, so plot net my daai punt, as x 3 is, gaan y wees minus 1. Kom ons sit hom sommer hier so. Wat gaan nou aan? Okay, everyone fine with that? Okay, that's going to get you 2 marks already. Then, next up, fx. Fx is wat is soort grafiek? Parabol, nee. Okay, and because of that negative, I know it would be sad face. Nee. Okay, dan, so I know that's going to be the shape. Dan moet ons gaan kyk vir x-intercept, y-intercept en turning point. Nee, maar nou hier gaan ek weer met dieselfde probleem sit. As ek nou gaan instel x is 0, dan gaan ek ook kry y is 0, nee. So, dit beteken dat hy ook daar gaan sny. So, your parabola, en ek weet nou nie van daai punt nie, kom ons gaan kyk gou wat is hy as ek vir 3 gaan instel. Gooi onder vir jou check. If x is 3 squared, then that will be minus the third times 9. En dit gaan vir my gee, tik maar in, 3. So minus 3. So if x is 3, y will be minus 3. So my parabol gaan min of meer so iets lyk. Ek weet nie kom die ding nou so snaaks maak nie. En daar het ek nou gewys as x 3 is. So y minus 3. Any questions? Sal ras met hom. Okay. Dan by 3.2, vra hulle vir my skryf die vergelyking van die inverse van f en g in die vorm y is gelyk aan. Can I skip? Stop as ek van hier af. That might be one. Anyone still copying here? Jy skryf nog nie. Klaar. Nou, lekker beter. Okay, so f se inverse gaan ek hê x is gelyk aan minus the third sorry, julle as dit lelik skryf is, minus the third y squared, né? I just switched the x and the y values around. Okay, so now I first got to get rid of that minus a third. So if I take it over, it will become divided by minus a third. Nee, julle reg? So kyk gou hier, daai x is x over 1 divided by minus a third. Wat gaan gebeur is, I change that to a multiplication, which means that these two swap around, so it becomes 3 over 1. Do you guys agree? Nee? Okay, so jy gaan op die ouend hê minus 3x. Does that make sense? Okay, so minus 3x is equal to y squared. Okay, now we've got to get rid of that square. So y will be plus or minus square root of minus 3x. Wie het hom gekry? Good. Goed, nou kom ons kyk gou na G. Get the inverse of G. Okay, so the first thing we do is we switch the x and the y. So x is equal to minus a third y. En julle het nou daar gesien, same steps, né? When I take it over and say divided by minus a third. So I would get minus 3x is equal to 1. Eintlik andersom, y is gelyk aan minus 3x, né? But same thing. You guys good? Okay, dan 3.3. At 3.3, wat is die lyn waarop fx en sy inverse symmetries is? Die symmetrielyn, that would be y is equal to x. Right, 3.4. Teken die grafiek van die inverse op dieselfde asstelsel as fx. I don't know if I'm going to have space. Okay, so fx was the purple one, no? Okay, ek gaan hom maar teken in rooi. So the origin will stay the same because if I switch that x and y value around, it's going to stay the same thing. No? Okay, now that point, the x and the y value will switch around. So x will be minus 3 and y will be 3. So x is minus 3 and y is 3. Kom ons sit hom maar daar. X is minus 3 and y is 3. Okay, now, I know it's going to go like that, but just to make sure, you could also get a point over here. Nee? Onthou, wat gaan daai koördinaat wees? My x-waarde gaan verskil. Hy gaan nou wees minus 3. Nee, maar my y-waarde gaan nog steeds wees minus 3. Do you guys agree? If I go substitute that into my equation, won't I get the same thing? Nee. Okay, and if I switch that x and y value around, omdat hulle dieselfde is, gaan dit mos hy selfde punt bly. Do you guys agree? Nee. So my inverse gaan dan lyk like that. Okay, myne lyk nou nie mooi nie. Hopefully yours is prettier. Okay, dan vra hulle vir my 3.5. Verduidelik hoekom daai inverse nie 'n funksie is nie. Hoekom is dit nie 'n funksie nie? Because if I do vertical line test, you will see that for every x value, there's more than one y value. Nee, gaan hom nou nie uitskryf nie. Jy kan net daar sê vir elke x waarde, so meer as een y waarde. En dan by 3.6 vra hulle vir my noem een manier waarop die definisieversameling van fx beperk kan word so that the inverse of that would be a function. And again, let me just skip there. You could have said x must be greater than or equal to 0, or you could have said x must be less than and equal to 0. Okay. Dan moes julle gedoen het 5. Ja. 5. Jy het geskryf 5, ja. Kan ek maar skip? Anyone still copying here? Goed, nommer 5. Okay, by 5 gee hulle vir jou fx. Let's say fx is equal to ax squared. En hulle sê vir my a moet wees kleiner en gelyk aan 0, nee? So they restricted that graph. You would see that it's a parabola, nee? Maar omdat hulle hom beperk het, sien jy net daai een armpie. Okay, dan gee hulle ook vir my daai punt van a wat x minus 2 is en y is 5. Now they ask me to get the value of a. So I'm going to use that coordinate of a and I'm going to substitute it in. So minus 2 en 5 gaan ek nou weer gaan instel. So instead of y, I'm going to say 5 is equal to a, and instead of x, minus 2. Is julle reg? So dan het ek 5 is gelyk aan 4a, which means that a will be 5 over 4. You guys good? Okay, so therefore, this equation actually looks like this. As ek so 30 keer ding skryf. Fx is gelyk aan 5 over 4 x squared. So dit lyk verskriklik. Right, then 5.2. Exactly wat ek sê. Bepaal die vergelyking van die inverse. Okay, so the inverse of f, I'm going to say instead of y, I'm going to say x is equal to 5 over 4 y squared. En hulle sê nie daar nie, maar hulle wil hom altyd hê in die formule, in die vorm van y is gelyk aan iets, né? So let's take the 5 over 4 over, and again, it would have been x over 1 divided by the 5 over 4. So that is going to switch around 4 over 5 when I change the division to a multiplication, né? So dan gaan ek hê 4x op 5 is gelyk aan y kwadraat. As jy gepraat het van 4 op 5x, same thing, nee? Which means that y will be square root of 4 over 5x. Any questions? Goed, kan ek maar skip. Hulle sê by gee die definisieversameling van f en die waardeversameling van die inverse. Now remember the domain of f and the range of the inverse will be the same thing. Nee? Okay. So by 5.3 okay. 5.3 the domain of that was x is less than 0, right? Less than and equal to. X is less than and equal to 0. That's the domain of f. And then the range of the inverse will be y is less than or equal to 0. Ek weet nie meer hoe om te skryf nie. Right. Any questions? Goed, 5.4. Sê hulle vir my teken die grafiek van F oor en skets dan die grafiek van die inverse op dieselfde as 'n stelsel. Dui die koördinate van 2 punte op die grafiek van hom aan. Okay, so okay, F lyk so. Minus 2 en 5. Okay, en onthou, die oorsprong kon jy dalk gebruik het as 'n punt, nee? Okay, so now if I were to do the inverse, that's going to switch around. So x will be 5 and y will be minus 2. So x is 5 en y is minus 2. Is miskien nie so ver nie, maar. Glad baie mooi, maar. Okay. Any questions? Onthou net altyd, nee, remember that these graphs are basically reflected in this line. That y is equal to x. Onthou julle dit? Nee? So as jy nie mooi die prentjie kan sien nie, dink daaraan hy moet so, as jy jou papier so sou vat en vou op daai lyntjie, dan gaan hy presies daar lê. Nee? You guys good? Okay, right. Then 5.5. As die grafiek van F eers in die y-as gereflekteer word en dan in daai lyn, skryf die vergelyking van die nuwe funksie. Okay, right. So 5.5. Our equation of F was y is equal to, wat was hy, 5 op 4 x kwadraat. 5 op 4 x kwadraat. Okay, now they're saying if this is reflected in the y-axis, it means the y will stay the same, but the x, the value will change. Nee, wat gaan hy dan raak? Y is equal to? Daar's sy. Minus 5 op 4 x kwadraat. Do you guys agree? Remember, last week we said when we reflect in the y-axis, y values stay the same, the x value, sign must change. Nee, so sien jy daar was 'n positief x, dan raak hy negatief x. Maar ek kan nie gaan sê 5 over 4 minus x squared, then it looks like I'm subtracting the x squared. So we put the minus in the front. See that right? Okay, so that's if it's reflected in the y-axis. And now they say after that, then reflected in the line y is equal to x, meaning get the inverse. Nee, so dan as ek inverse gaan kry, dan gaan ek hê x is gelyk aan minus 5 op 4 y kwadraat. But now we want it in the form of y is equal to, so dan gaan ek hê minus 4 over 5x is equal to y squared. Met ander woorde, y is plus minus vierkantswortel van minus 4 op 5x. Okay. Net mooi. All we've got to do is mark the ones that you got for Friday, nee? Okay, goed, dit sal ons môre gou